full weekend of September. It is crazy how fast time flies. As always, make sure that you have your chat box there where you type set to everyone, because how we hang out here with each other in our Sonder socials is primarily in the chat, and you want to make sure that you have that set to everyone, so that you can share with the group and we can all see what is going on. This is some of our favorite time of the week to be able to check in with you all and kind of see how things are going and just spend time with our people. So, as always, we'll go over our community guidelines here. Please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam, please. We are going to respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product accessory questions and things. We don't mind a little bit of chatter around that. You'll see, like, in the opening slides, I talked about stickers, and I use the stickers in my setup and everything now. So we want some like relevant chatter, what kind of pins you like and that sort of thing. But we also want to make sure you have enough time to actually get to your setup. And then the wonderful, amazing Jennifer O is my stage manager today. So she'll be hanging out in the chat with all of you, there to answer questions, and I'll be hanging out in the chat as well. But I'm not the best multitasker, so while I am up on camera, you may not hear from me as much in the chat, but she's there for you at all times if you have questions or need anything. But there are some things that she and I do not have access to get the proper answers to. So if it's something that needs to go over to the headquarters team, then we'll redirect it over to hello@silkandsonder.com and they'll get you taken care of. They are a small but mighty team and they do work Monday through Friday. So just give them a little bit of time, but they will get back to you. And then finally, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So like I have said so many times before, for me, that means as we are going through our different prompts and activities together, if any of those like crunchy feelings start to come up, right? Those things that you're like, ooh, that's a little uncomfortable, or ooh, I'm not so sure about that. Sometimes a little bit of crunch is good, right? Texture is good. But sometimes it can feel a little like you're stepping on a Lego, which is horrible. So if you've not stepped on a Lego, I do not recommend. It's awful. So if it starts to go more towards that Lego direction and you need to take a break, you need to step back, you're not ready to engage with it, we want you to do that. At the same time, we also want you to feel comfortable sharing. I have not had the best week personally, which I'll share a little bit about you all, or about with you all as we get further in. So I'm very thankful to be here with all of you and kind of spend this time, just like I said, hanging out with our people and, you know, just getting the good vibes, because it's always good vibes when we have good time together. So, our agenda. We are going to complete our knowledge mind map. If you are new to the weekly setups, the mind map is an activity where we focus on our particular theme of the month, and we have a different prompt each week. So if you join us for the weekly setups each week, then you'll be able to participate in that mind map prompt. And then we'll do our rosebud thorn reflection to think about last week before we move into our next week and get set up for the week ahead. So as most of you know by now, or at least I hope so, our theme is knowledge. And I was thinking about this earlier when I was driving home from a friend's house. Knowledge is one of those themes that is nice because it's really accessible. And what I mean by that is, like, if you hear the word knowledge, you know what it means. You know what it means for you. You have some idea of what it is and how it kind of incorporates things into your life, right? But I also think it is a theme that kind of evolves. So the last like week or so that we've been engaging with this theme, I kind of talked about how knowledge and information may be like two different things, because even on the definition on, I think it's page 3 of the journal, it actually says that the definition of knowledge is, if I can flip over to it here, facts, information, and skills rather than or. So it's like you need all three before you have knowledge. But I also think that knowledge is something that's kind of ever changing. And for me, at least, when it kind of crosses over from those facts and information and things, is when we have those skills or that information, and then you know what to do with it, right? It becomes like applied in some way. Even if you're not able to actually go ahead and take action immediately, you can kind of formulate the idea in your head of what you need to do to get the skills to make the thing happen, right? It's kind of like a stepping stone to different things. And like you'll get the information and then you'll turn that information into some like knowledge, right? And then maybe you need a little more information, a little more knowledge. And like eventually you can kind of stair step up to your goal. And I wanted to talk about that because I think it's a really great lead into our mind map question today, which is going to be specifically around procedural knowledge. So go ahead and flip to a blank page in your journal or whatever area you are doing your mind map activities. If you don't have a specific page carved out, you can always just do this in the scratch notes section, any blank page in your journal, or if you fill up all the nooks and crannies in your journal, you can always use a separate notebook like the thoughts journal or just like a bunch of sticky notes. I used to love to just like write things like this on sticky notes. I don't know, there's something satisfying about writing on a sticky note sometimes. So whatever feels good for you. And each week we're going to reflect on that different type of knowledge. So like I said, this week is going to be on procedural knowledge. So last week we had declarative, and this week it's procedural. So consider a skill or process that you've mastered. How did you learn to do it? What steps did you take to become proficient? And what challenges did you encounter along the way? Reflect on how this skill has impacted your daily life or work and how you might continue to improve it. So I think that kind of ties into that whole idea that you've got the initial information of like, I need to do this thing, right? Or I have to do this thing. It's a part of my job or a part of life, right? Like I'm living out on my own for the first time. Oh no, now I have to feed myself. How does that work, right? So you know you have to do this thing and you maybe have an idea of how it works, but it really becomes procedural when you are able to do it and execute on it. And I think this prompt is leading us into something around being able to do a skill repetitively, right? Like it's something that you're like confident in. So it's not just procedural, but also proficient. And so for me, what I decided to write about was cooking because, you know, gonna toot my own horn a little bit here. Like I am a fantastic cook. And I love saying that because there was a time where the only thing I knew how to make was tuna fish sandwiches. Like the first few years of me living out on my own, it was a lot of tuna fish sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly, and frozen meals because that's all I knew how to do. And we were really broke. And so peanut butter and jelly and tuna fish is thankfully pretty economically friendly. So we ate a lot of that stuff in the beginning. And I remember, oh yeah, Victoria, I love a good grilled cheese, but I couldn't even do that right in the beginning. I just I had like no skills. I actually had very few like life skills when my husband and I got our first place together. He had to teach me how to do laundry and run the dishwasher. Like it's crazy. And so I remember talking to my husband's grandmother, who's an amazing cook, and being like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to cook like you, right? I'm never going to figure this out." And she's so kind. She was like, "Oh, you will. I used to not be able to cook anything either. You just have to start. And it's so hard to get started because ingredients are expensive, right?" I remember being like, "Oh my gosh, how many spices do I need? This is crazy." Now we have a whole spice rack because we've kind of accumulated them over time. But it's so expensive to even just get started cooking and to be able to take a risk on something, right? Because when I was starting out, whatever I made for dinner, that's what we had to eat, whether it was burnt and terrible or not. um, but we thankfully did get to a place where I could experiment a little bit, and we got all the way to a place where I was able to sign up for a Blue Apron meal subscription. And I'll tell you, if you are looking for something that is going to save you time, that is not the one. Blue Apron can be pretty complicated, but I learned so much by making those meals because they were a little more complicated. It took me out of my comfort zone to learn new techniques. I got to try new flavors, and a lot of those same techniques that I learned from their recipes, I can apply to multiple things now in my life. And it obviously has had a huge impact on us because eating is something we have to do every day. And the more we can do it at home, the more money it saves us. But we love food and we're good foodie people. So the more often I can make a good meal at home, the better off it is for us financially. So I have the definition for procedural knowledge here on the left-hand side, just in case that helps you. And then some fun little quotes to kind of like give you a little inspiration, but I will hop back and forth between these slides while you think about what this prompt about procedural knowledge means to you. Share in the chat what comes up, what this takes you back to, and don't forget, sorry, I don't know if you can hear this little baby crying in the background here. He is very interested in the pictures on the wall. Let us know, don't forget to reflect on how the skill has impacted your daily life. And I'll put on some music and then we'll move on to our next thing. Thank you all for taking some time to sit with this. And if you're still thinking about it and like typing, please continue to do so because I'm seeing some really good things coming through. Like I just saw Suzanne said that there's just going to be driving proficient in the snow. And that does not sound weird at all, Suzanne, because I live just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and I can tell you that people here do not know how to drive in the snow. First of all, we don't get snow that often. We actually get ice with like a dusting of snow, which is horrible. But even when we do get snow, people are very intimidated by it and they have no idea how to drive in it and literally shuts the whole city down. So it absolutely is a procedural skill. And there's so many other things I'm seeing in here, like work-related things, things from previous jobs, current jobs. If you're like retired now, opportunities you had where you could like grow that and pass it on to others. And I'm seeing a lot of like theme in here around practice and also just like a little bit of chance and bravery, right? It's hard to do new things. It's hard to kind of like take that first step trying to learn something. And sometimes there's barriers, right? When I talked about cooking, it's like, oh, that's expensive to buy all these ingredients and do all these things. But if you just be patient and keep working at it, I think most of us can learn how to do just about anything, even if you think that you can't. So we're now going to reflect back on last week with our rosebud thorn exercise. So our thinking back on the last 7 days or so and thinking of a rose, a highlight, something that went well, something that made you smile. Sometimes a rose is just that you made it through the week. A bud is an emerging opportunity, something on the horizon. Oftentimes it might be like change or something new. And then a thorn is a challenge, something that is hard, maybe not so great that you're struggling with. So I always like to do mine in reverse order. So for me, my thorn last week is that on Tuesday, my husband found out that he is getting laid off from his job. He's employed through the end of the month and he is getting some severance. And thankfully, he works in a field that, he's got some skills that are fairly high demand, but still, this has never happened to us before. So it's pretty stressful. Thank you all. It's interesting. We actually work for the same company and my job is safe. I'm fine. Everything is okay. It was very specific to his area of the business, but it is really strange to continue to work for the company that laid your husband off. It's a very strange kind of dichotomy, if you will. So we'll get through it, but it's definitely been a little stressful, especially the last week or so. It was very sudden and very unexpected. So I appreciate all the love and support. Our bud is that, so he is being laid off at his job, but then also our office is relocating and there's a lot of opportunity kind of ramping up with that, some of it good, some of it bad, but also he has a lot of different opportunities with his job hunt. And since I'm going to kind of have to move and have a commute anyway, it kind of opens us up to some options that maybe we wouldn't have looked at previously. So that's sort of our bud on the horizon, if you will. And then the rose is that we're doing all the right things that we need to do in this situation. I am a very reactive problem solver, and this is one thing that I can't just snap my fingers and fix. But I am somebody that I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can, right? So I turn to like some expert podcasts and financial people and things of like, what do you do? And they confirm that we're all doing everything that we're supposed to be doing. We've got some emergency savings for this exact situation. And so it's like, okay, we're doing everything we're supposed to. Yes, it's stressful, but I'm managing it really well. And I am somebody that deals with anxiety, as a lot of you know. So the fact that I am managing through this really well is definitely a rose and a big win for me. So we're going to focus on that part. So, Lori, I'm so sorry. It's very rough. I hope that it gets better for you out there too. So, all this to say, this is another reminder that this is a safe space. And one of the things I love about this exercise is that, life is full of ups and downs and all kinds of unexpected changes. And sometimes those changes are not so great. And sometimes they are really awesome. And sometimes a not so great change can lead to something even better. And we just can't see that at the time. And sometimes it just stinks. So I'm thankful that we all have this exercise that we can kind of do to reflect back with some balance and also share with one another because we all have things going on where we want to support one another. And also, when there are great things going on, things that we can encourage and celebrate with each other on. So, I'll give you a few minutes to reflect and then please share in the chat if you're comfortable. And then we'll move on to our weekly setup. My computer is not touchscreen, and I just want all of you to know that I tried to pause the music by touching the screen just now. So that is my humble moment for the day to share with you all. Thank you all so much for sharing your rosebuds and thorns. Like I said, it's always, life can be tough and it also can be great. And there's always balance. And it's so nice to know that we have people that are going through the same things or have been there and that you have this community to kind of like help cheer you on and also really celebrate. So thank you all for sharing. We are now going to move in to our main event, which is our weekly setup. So this week is on page 40 and 41, and this is my full spread with all my fun stickers and things. I have fully become a sticker girly now that I've learned how to use them. I think they're so much fun, and I'm still like experimenting with where I can put things and where they fit and that sort of thing. So it's still a little trial and error. I may or may not have like wasted a couple this week trying to figure it out, but I will go into each one of these sections, and we're going to start with page 40 in the top with how I want to feel. So if you've done a weekly with me before, you know my word of the year is embrace. It's a little ironic now with everything that's going on, but that's okay. So this week I want to embrace being persistent in the moment. I've been changing it from how I want to feel to I want to embrace. So I just want to be present in the moment and try not to think too far ahead into the future right now. There's some other words on the screen there for some good inspiration. And then we have all of these wonderful examples from Sonder Club. I'll put on a quick song for you all, and then we'll move into our next section. Okay. If your feeling hasn't come to you yet, that's okay. Sometimes I get like all the way through my setup and then I realize only then, oh, this is the feeling I want to invoke this week, or this is what I want to embrace. So it'll come to you. We are now going to move down a little bit to the center of the page, and we're going to do our weekly to-dos and weekly major 3. I started combining these in my setups when I host them for you all, because so many of you are kind of tying these things together now. And I finally started tying mine together a little bit as well. And what I mean by that is you can set your weekly major 3 goals first, and then you can kind of think about what to-dos are going to support those major 3 goals, right? So for me, I use my to-do section to keep up with like the appointments and things that I have going on. Excuse me. And then I kind of have like a running list of to-dos that it's like, I don't really intend to do them this week, but if I don't keep track of them, I'm going to forget about them for long periods of time. So I kind of have that running list still. But for my major 3 goals, I'm doing major 3 affirmations. And these are the affirmations that the beta life coach is giving me. And then I'm tying kind of 3 to-dos to go with that. So like for my I navigate changes with a strong, calm mind and a loving, resilient heart. I have breath work kind of tied in as like a to-do to kind of help support that, because I know that taking time to just sit and breathe and kind of slow down will absolutely help with that kind of affirmation and that mindset. So here are some more examples where people have kind of married these 2 sections together, if you will. Like you can see, number 2 there on the top right is budget, and they've got this, build in their budget update and reconcile things, et cetera, to kind of go with that overall major 3 goal, right? And then you've got this one here on like the middle left where they still did their to-dos as like a little bingo, but each row of the bingo goes with one of those major 3 goals, which is super fun. And then we have some examples. If you have a super busy week, if you are thinking about writing out your to-do list and you're like, it is never going to fit in this little square and you're feeling super overwhelmed, you might want to try using that Eisenhower decision matrix, like on a scratch piece of paper or something somewhere first, to kind of figure out what is actually like urgent and important and focus on those things first before adding some of those other things. If you're like me and you struggle with executive dysfunction, the Pomodoro technique can be really helpful. I have ADHD, and that makes me a very poor judge of time. And so I often think it's going to take me forever to do a task, when actually, if I just get up and get started, it doesn't usually take as long as I think. So with the Pomodoro technique, you agree to work on a task for 25 minutes. You kind of like make that deal with yourself. You set a timer and then you do it, right? And then after 25 minutes, if the task isn't done, you check in, you record your progress, and then you say, okay, now that I'm up and moving, can I do another 25 minutes? Do I have that in me? Or is this really not the time or the day and I can come back to it later? And most of the time, once you get going, you can usually keep going and get it done. But if not, that's okay too. Sometimes I have days where I'm like, nope, this is not it. You could try a to be list if you want instead of a to do list. You can also do a to da list, so writing out everything that you get done instead of everything you need to do. I know some people like to do a to da on one side of the weekly setup and then like a to do on the other. That way they don't forget their to dos, but then they get to focus on their to das. You could also do a need, want, hope list. We love a bingo here at Silk and Sonder, so if you can turn your to-dos into a bingo, feel free to do so. If you have anything fun coming up this week, like a birthday or some other celebration, I think Katie said, I think that they're getting a new puppy, so maybe you'll have like some puppy to-do bingos this week that you could think about. You could do that. You can divide into different areas of focus. If you have a routine you're trying to establish, that might be a good place to do that here. For your major three, you can decide to divide into like 3 categories, like school, self, family, learn, leap into, let go of. With our theme of knowledge, maybe there are 3 things that you're trying to like explore more, right? Like maybe you're trying to read or watch a documentary or just get outside and explore nature. You could lean into those things. You can also think about how you want to support that feeling, right? Of how you want to feel. And as always, this is your journal. So if at any point in time, what we have kind of carved out here does not feel like it fits for you, if you have something else that would work better, do that instead. We always want you to repurpose this however you see fit. And there's some ideas of how you can do that here. And if something doesn't speak to you and you don't have an idea for it, that's okay too. You can always just throw in a sticker for fun or a quote or just leave it blank. It is okay to not fill in every space if it is going to stress you out more than help you. Your journal should always feel like something that is supporting you and not the other way around. So I'm going to go through all of these slides again and I'll put on some music for you. Let us know what you're kind of tackling this week, how you're deciding to do these, and then we will move into our next section. Okay. Thank you all for considering these two sections. I saw lots of people leading into the like Pomodoro technique and also our Eisenhower matrix and kind of thinking about, oh, what does that delegate mean? And Nathania called out like, oh, I just saw a version of this where like instead of delegate, it said schedule. And that was kind of like that mindset shift change that like I needed to like utilize that better. And I think that that's awesome. I think that's kind of similar to that like to-da versus to-do, right? It feels totally different. So I'm glad that you were able to kind of figure that out. And thank you for sharing. So we're now going to hop down to the bottom of the page where our habits and activities section is. Now, we obviously have your like habit tracker wheel at the front of their journal for the month. And this space in the weekly can be a good space if you're somebody that like the monthly area doesn't work super well for you. Or you could focus in on that activity part more so than habit, right? Maybe there's something specific just for this week you want to kind of track, or maybe you're trying to establish a new routine and you want to kind of focus on that a little bit. But also, if you do have habits that you track on the monthly side and they're going well, this can be a good place to kind of test out some new habits to kind of see how they feel. Or let's say one of your habits is to walk 5,000 steps a day and that's going really well. Maybe for like 3 days this week, you want to do like 10,000 steps and kind of see how that goes and see if you're ready to like stretch that goal a little bit, right? So for me, I'm putting that breath work that is from the Life Coach Beta in here. I kind of made that one of my major goals that goes along with that affirmation because I need that front and center. And it's easier for me if it's just written out there in the journal where I can see it real quick, easy peasy, because my journal goes with me everywhere. So I've got it there so that I can remember to hopefully lean into that. But you can see we have lots of great examples from the Sonder fam. As always, just because there is a line does not mean the line has to be filled in. So if you just want to track one thing this week, that is totally fine. If you want to track nothing this week, if you want to fill in every line in front of you, again, make this work in whatever way makes the most sense for you. You also could try tracking how much of something you do or do not do. Like I know at one point I was trying really hard to stop biting my nails, so I was like tracking no nail biting. And then you can set a particular goal of how often you hope to do something this week, or you can just track it as it happens. It's totally up to you. And then here are some other little ideas for inspiration. So like I said, you can make a to not do list if you want to kind of track things that you're not doing that are good things to not do, like not getting enough sleep. So I am not getting enough sleep. I know it's kind of like a weird phrasing, but you get what I'm saying. You can kind of track the reverse of that. And then we are fully starting to get into that fall season. So there are a couple of like fun little fall activities here, but maybe that's some inspiration of like, I know our local coffee shop just posted the other day that they've got like fresh apple cider in. So maybe you want to have like one fall treat twice this week and you want to kind of like track it to make sure that you're giving yourself that little fun moment. So I will hop between these slides while you think about how you want to utilize this section for you, and then we'll flip on over to the next one. All right. And just one other reminder, tracking is not a to-do, right? Like I know it can feel like that sometimes because like you're like, oh, this is a goal, this is a thing I want to do. But tracking itself is not actually a to-do list. It's just data. And it can help you kind of make decisions about what's working for you and what's not. I have tracked things before for months before I realized that actually this thing isn't actually important to me. It's a thing I think I should do rather than a thing I actually want to do. And that's why it's not going well. And I couldn't have like figured that out until I saw clearly, oh, I'm avoiding this task, right, for months and months on end. So if it starts to feel like a to do, just remind yourself it's not a to do, it's just data. We are going to hop over to the next page and we're going to start with that section that's titled Meal Plan. This is a space that gets repurposed a lot just because it takes up a lot of real estate in the journal. But having a meal plan can be a really great and helpful thing for a lot of reasons. I like these three little quotes here of to eat is a necessity, but to eat intelligently is an art. Food for the body is not enough. There must be food for the soul, and knowledge is food of the soul. And that kind of plays into some of the examples we'll see for repurposing of how people like to use this space. But if you use it as intended as a meal plan, that is great. Or if you use it as a meal tracker, that is also great. It took me a couple years actually to figure out how this space worked best for me. I tried a lot of different things, and I finally figured out that using this to keep track of my work meetings is actually something that helps me a lot. So I've been doing that for a while now, but I don't work on the weekends, and so that space was kind of empty. So I started putting the journaling prompts that I'm getting from the Life Coach beta there. So again, I wouldn't forget about them. But here are some examples of ways you can repurpose. So you can see somebody here is using it as an actual meal plan, right? Or a meal tracker, one or the other. But then we've got all of these other things here. You've got affirmations. I like this mindful moments one, 3 daily priorities. We've got some kind of like carved out journal prompt things. They're not like full prompts, right? But it's this week I learned, I created, and what do I want to talk about this week? What am I singing this week? Kind of like a check-in, in addition to all of these things here over on the left-hand side. And then we've got some more examples. I like the victory inventory. That is really fun. Kind of like, it's almost like doing like your rose of the day, but like phrased a different way. We talked earlier about how words can be really impactful. So I like the idea of calling it a victory inventory. The one thing I love about myself, and then this food for the soul. And then you've got somebody that puts their to-dos here. I think that there are a couple people that they do a to-da list over on the to-do side, but then they do an actual to-do list over here. So I'll put on some music for you all so you can think about how this section will work best for you. And then we'll dive into our last few sections before we wrap up. All right. Hopefully, you were able to find what fits you best for this section. If not, just try something out or come back to it later. Like I said, it took me a while to figure out what to put here, but now I really rely on it every week. So we are now going to hop on over to the Mind Body Health Plan and the shopping list section. So this is another thing I've started combining because I've kind of seen people using these sections kind of interchangeably. Like somebody may use the Mind Body Health Plan, but then they do like a to-do bingo in their shopping list, or vice versa, or it's like a self-care bingo. So they're kind of getting used interchangeably when they're not being used for, their pre-printed purpose, if you will. And I loved this little ghost graphic that like popped up on my Instagram feed the other day where it says, if you do not pick a day to rest and relax, your body will pick it for you, which is so true. So if you are doing the Mind Body Health Plan or carving out some self-care time in the shopping list, make sure that you are carving out some time for rest and replenishment of yourself. For me, I always do like a little self-care kind of bingo in the Mind Body Health Plan. That's what works best for me. And then my shopping list is a shopping list because if I don't write it down, I'll either impulse buy it because I'm afraid that I will forget to buy it, or I will actually forget to buy it. So it helps me to have an actual list. But here are some more examples here. You can kind of see where this person has carved out this big, weekend area for a reset. I love that. Love seeing when you all carve out that time for rest. And as you know, there are 7 types of rest, and the goal is not to necessarily get all 7 types, right? It's just for you to kind of cue into areas that you may be spending more energy than usual in. And so maybe you don't feel tired, and so you don't feel like you need rest, but actually it's just that you don't need physical rest. You might need creative rest. Like maybe you do a lot of problem solving at work, and that does take creativity. But when was the last time you tried to like use your coloring page or doodle or do something a little bit different? Our brains love routine, but they also thrive off of a little bit of a challenge, and switching up things into those different rest modes can kind of help them stay happy and healthy. So want to take care of our little brains, right? And then here are some more examples. You can see where some people are putting like a self-care bingo again in that mind body health plan like I do, or they're moving it down into the shopping list. I also like this shopping list, Kimberly. I think it might be yours, where it's a shopping list, but it's really cute. It's like flowers and stuff, but it's still a shopping list. It's really fun. I think I'm gonna have to try to do something like that with mine, because I always use it as a shopping list, but it doesn't look this cute. So you've inspired me to give that a go. And then a couple more examples and other ideas of what you can do here. I think I will always have this washi scraps example up here because I think that's such a fun, like quirky thing to do. It's kind of like a little abstract art piece in your journal every week. It's so fun. So I'll put on another song for you all to think about how these sections would work best for you. Share with us in the chat how you're filling this in or what your plan is, and then we will wrap up our time together. All right. Well, the last thing that we have here is just the I'm loving section. If you usually wait and fill that out at the end of the week, that's totally fine. You don't have to do it right now. But as we close out our time together, if there's anything that you are loving that you'd like to share, we would love to see it. I personally am just loving all the opportunities that I have to kind of spend time with you all this month, especially since it's looking like it might be a little bit of a crazy one for me. I just love our community so much. And so I appreciate all the love and support, and I love spending time with you all. So thank you all for being here and for being a part of this setup. If you're comfortable sharing your pages in Sonder Club, we would love to see them, and we would love to see if we could feature them in a future setup. Honestly, the biggest thing for me with examples is just if you can get a super clear and kind of like close up picture, that is what's easiest for us to kind of like grab and then translate into the slides. So I've seen a lot of really good examples before that I wanted to use, but like I couldn't get it to work in the little format. So if you're ever like, why isn't mine on there? It might just have been the photo when it got uploaded into the app. So we'll get it on there eventually. If you haven't heard, the personalized life coach beta is still open. You can email hello@soakandsonder.com if you have questions or you're interested. You saw kind of how I'm using that in my weekly setup this week. As always, we are doing our refer a friend program. So You get $10 off, they get $10 off, and then we would love to have you at a social together. If you are not already an annual subscriber and you are able to upgrade, it can save you some money. So just something to think about, especially since, I mean, holidays and things will be here before we know it, if you can believe it. So think about those wish lists and like treat yourself things. And then please fill out the survey and let us know what you think. And Jennifer's going to pop all of these links in the chat as well as the YouTube link. So this social is recorded and it'll be up in a couple of days along with most of our others. So if you ever have to leave early, join late, can't make it, etc., the recording will be there in just a couple of days. And then I will share my playlist here in the chat as well. If you just search like Silke and Sonder or Sonder Social on Spotify, you should be able to find all of my playlists, honestly. Feel free to listen to them, pull songs from them, and make your own playlist, whatever is going to help you in your journal journey. But it was our pleasure to spend this time here with you today. We hope you feel ready to set up the week and supported. And until next time, we will see you all in Sonder Club.
Never seen the sun before, lying on the ocean floor. I'm walking through the wilderness and living off the loneliness. So wild blue, deeper than I ever knew. Wild blue, on a bed of gray. Oh baby, what a wild blue. I found myself when I lost you. All the tears I meant to cry dance across the evening sky. And in my sorrow I can see that missing you belongs to me. Oh, wild blue, deeper than I ever knew. Wild blue, on a bed of gray. Oh baby, what a wild blue. I found myself when I